All right, I'm Chris Huggard. This is Chris Childers. Chris is the Dean of
College of Arts and Sciences.
College of Arts and Sciences here at PSU, and he's going to welcome us. So please give Chris Childers a hand.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all for coming to Pittsburg State University and to Pittsburg, Kansas for this wonderful conference that you are all holding. It sounds like you had a wonderful day yesterday. I'll set my cup of coffee down. It sounds like you had a wonderful day yesterday touring the region here and getting a better sense of our mining history here in southeast Kansas, as well as down in the Tri-States District as well. So it's wonderful, especially for somebody who, now I'm a college dean, but I started out as a history professor, and I am a proud member of the Board of Trustees of the Miners Hall Museum, and all my friends are over here for that. Yes. But it's such a pleasure to see all of you here and so many people interested in the history of mining in the United States and indeed throughout the world. And whether it's the amazing machinery that went behind it, or the immigrants who came, or the people who migrated from one part of the United States to another to engage in the practice of mining, or maybe it's even a personal story. And I know for so many of us in southeast Kansas, that's exactly what the connection is. But whatever your connection is to mining and mining history, this is a great opportunity to learn more about it, to celebrate that, and to really promote the history of mining history. For me, it's a personal story, and it's one that I didn't even know I had. So 10 years ago, when I moved to southeast Kansas to take a job as a history professor at Pittsburg State University, I went and visited this museum in this little town called Franklin that I had no idea existed. It was by another little town I didn't know existed called Arma. But kind of the twin cities of southeast Kansas, although maybe that's Pittsburg and Frontenac, I don't know. But I go into the museum and I'm walking around, and history buff that I am, I'm having a wonderful time, and I go over to the research library. And there's a book there that compiled all of the mining accident data that the state collected on accidents people had in the mines. And I thought, I know I had a couple of relatives, ancestors who lived in southeast Kansas. I'm going to thumb through. I go to the C's, I look at Childers, and I see George S. Childers. I go, oh my goodness, that's my great-grandpa, my great-great-grandpa. I didn't know we had anybody in my family involved in mining, and sure enough, there it was right there. I was hooked after that. I joined the board soon thereafter. I mean, I've been all in. So, but whatever your connection is, thank you for being a part of this and for celebrating this. And know too that it's such an important connection for all of us here, not only at Pittsburg State University, but of course throughout the region. As I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, and maybe I will, but as you might have already heard, actually part of this very building that you're in right now for this conference originated as a mine safety building on this campus. It's actually right over there, and some of the walls are embedded in other walls now as we've renovated over time, but it's deeply woven into our history here. And so thank you for being here at Pittsburg State and for being able to take part in this wonderful conference. And I hope you have a wonderful day here today, learning more about mining and its rich history. Thank you.
So many people have a connection to mining who had lived here or came here even because they were returning after generations. Our next speaker is Blair Snyder. She's actually not on the program. Things worked out. She's back on the program. Blair Snyder is with the Kansas Geological Survey at the University of Kansas, and she's working on various different projects, including the Core CM project, and she's also not only going to speak now, but will speak later. So please welcome Blair Snyder.
So I get a huge kick on being called Dr. BS, so please call me Dr. BS. Like the only reason I changed my name when I got married. But so I'm here to kind of give you the geologist perspective. I really wanted to kind of set the stage for the next two presenters as well about what happened here. Why were we even able to mine? And so I'm going to give you a fun little history lesson from the geology perspective. I just want to get a quick background. Raise your hand if you've taken any kind of geo or earth science class at some point. Okay, this tells me you know how much I changed my terminology and stuff like that. So I am a geologist. I study Earth, what it's made of, and how it changes over time. And I get really stinking excited when I'm talking about geology. So if I'm talking too fast, please also raise your hand and let me know. But I work at the Kansas Geological Survey. And so I am responsible for really working on trying to get outreach and education about our wonderful state of Kansas. And so Kansas, this is our generalized geologic map of Kansas here. Anyone here ever seen a geologic map? Raise your hand. How many of you are looking at this and going, what the heck is on this image? Okay, got a couple of those. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about what this is telling us and why this special little corner down here is really important for the mining history here. So a geologic map of Kansas is essentially, this is the surface. So the kinds of rocks that we'll find at the surface. And these weird words that you got on the side here, Quaternary, Neogene, Cretaceous, these actually refer to different time periods in geologic time. And so right here we've got our time scale, our geologic time scale. So starting in the Hadean, going back the 4.6 billion years, up into the Quaternary Holocene where we are today. And so when we talk about geologic time, we divide this up to just make it easier for ourselves. We start with eons, and then we move into eras, we move into periods, epochs, ages, and we often refer to our rock formations, our rock units, by their geologic time. And so where we're focused on today, when we talk about the mining history here, we're focused on the Phanerozoic into the Pennsylvanian and Mississippian subperiods. And this time range is about 299 to 359 million years ago. The rocks that we're mining today came about during this time period, so they're pretty darn old, right? So we didn't just get these deposits 100 years ago before they came mined. They've been here for millions and millions of years. And so I like to set the stage also by just saying, okay, so what did Kansas look like during this time? There's this awesome artist who has done some reconstructions of what the US and what different continents look like during different time periods. So during the Paleozoic era, so going back even before, farther back down to about 485 million years ago, seas covered Kansas during this time period. We don't have any rocks at the surface today that are this old, but we can drill into the ground and find rocks of that age. We have limestone, shales, dolomites, sandstones, cherts. We have microscopic fossils and even some small marine fossils that have been found during this time frame. And I should preface too, what are the three rock types? Oh, punk, rock, and hard. Come on, so yeah, igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, right? In Kansas, we are sedimentary, baby, all right? We have just so much sedimentary rock. We have pretty much one igneous rock that you'll find at the surface, which is a magma intrusion called a kimberlite up near Riley County. Fun fact, that's where diamonds come from. We have not found a diamond in the Kansas kimberlites though, so don't go get excited. My PhD advisor claims that he found one. He says it broke his drill bit, but I don't believe that. It came from his shoulder back. And then we really don't have any metamorphic rocks except for the Sioux quartzite boulders. But I don't consider those Kansas rocks because they were brought here from up north in the glaciers. Okay, tangents. So we've got a lot of sedimentary rocks here. As we keep moving through time, as we get into this Mississippian period and the Pennsylvanian period, we have cycles of shallow seas and dry land that resulted into deposits of more limestone, sandstone, shale, and chert. But found at the surface in far southeast Kansas, we have the oldest surface rocks. So the oldest rocks you'll find at the surface today in Kansas are Mississippian in age, and that is the Tri-State Mining District that you are learning a lot about over the period of this conference. And then within those rocks, you've got crinoids, brachiopods, bryozoans, mollusks, lots of really cool fossils. You have a lot of oil and gas that are produced from the Mississippian rock layers. And when you move into the Pennsylvanian period, We have shallow seas, but we start to move into more swamps and river channels. And this is really important because those swamps are the reason why we have coal, right? It would take like 10 feet of trees, dead trees, swamp debris, to make one small thing of coal. So you can imagine how much swamp actually covered this area during that time frame. And I'm just going to keep going a little bit because I can't miss these other parts. As we move past into the Mesozoic era, we were actually pretty dry during this time period before the Western Interior Seaway came through. Kansas is very famous for our fossils that came out of the Western Interior Seaway during the Cretaceous time period. So after you leave this part of Kansas, go west. Go west and check out some of the really amazing sites we have out there. I do want to point out that we don't have any dinosaurs, okay? If we did have dinosaurs, those Triassic rocks have eroded away. We don't have any of those at the surface today. And the dinosaurs that we have found, we think are from bloat and float. So they actually were like in like Colorado or someone else died in the sea and then floated down here. And so we don't think we actually have any dinosaurs here. But our rocks we don't have rocks of the age that would have the dinosaurs. But these are some of the things that we're famous for. Plesiosaurs, the cyphactinus. If you go out to western Kansas and Hayes, you've got that fish inside the fish. The cyphactinus is like longer than this stage, and then there's this beautiful fish inside of it. That's how it died. It's too big of an appetite. Crinoids in the bottom down there, these are like basically kind of think of them as like ancient sea lilies, sea flowers, but they can be like as tall as the ceiling. So just amazing creatures that formed during this time period. And then we move into today. So a lot that has influenced Kansas today, Rocky Mountain Formation starting, 60 million years ago, brought a lot of sediments and silt and stuff like that into western Kansas, which formed our High Plains Aquifer, which is our main source of water out in western Kansas. So many cool fossils you can find, megafaunal and stuff like that. We were the grasslands, the prairies, and then of course we had the glaciers during the last glacial maximum. So those actually did reach down into northeastern Kansas. And so that history is what makes up this map. And so all these beautiful colors are representing the different rocks you'll see at the surface. And if you'll notice, it's oldest on the eastern side, and then as you move west, it gets younger and younger. So it doesn't mean you can't find Mississippian rocks in western Kansas. You just got to drill down a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 feet to get down to it, right? I'm gonna like just like briefly say this because I know that there's a talk that's gonna talk about how we have the minerals that we have. But within the Tri-State Mining District area, cool geologic events are the reason we have the lead and zinc ore that we are actually we're mining for. There are faults below that area. Magma rises up along those faults. That Mississippian rock is a limestone, very porous and stuff like that. And so when this magma, the liquids and stuff like that come up, they fill in those pores and then actually precipitate out all of these wonderful minerals that we have. So someone else is going to give you a much more detailed discussion of that, so I'm not going to take that thunder. I'm going to keep on going past. But so the Tri-State Mining District here, first commercial ore discovery in this district was in southwestern Missouri around 1838. And by the start of the Civil War, these mines were producing so much lead that both the North and South fought to control the mining to secure a source of lead for bullets. Fightings closed the mines for most of the war, and these are, if you were at the museum last night, these are the ores we're looking for. Beautiful blocks of galena. Galena is one of my favorite minerals. It's so pretty. And then sphalerite. Fun thing about sphalerite, if you take sphalerite and you scratch it, it smells like rotten eggs. Try it. It's how you'll know how to identify it. Other deposits, calcite, galena, chalcopyrite, pyrite, marcasite, dolomite, quartz, jasperite, all of these were really economically important during that tri-state mining boom. I'm trying to go fast. Production peaked in this area between 1918 and 1941. During the 1920s, more than 11,000 miners worked in the area, and perhaps 3 times as many were involved in support work in industries. This is from the Kansas Memory, some of the postcards we have of Galena, Kansas at that time frame. I can't imagine living in that, but that was what it looked like at the time. And in 1970, the last active mine, which is located 2 miles west of Baxter Springs, Kansas, shut down due to environmental and economic problems, which brought an end to to a century of lead and zinc mining in this tri-state area. But during the life of the district, and these numbers will probably be more factually given out by others, but over 4,000 mines, 23 million tons of zinc concentrates, 4 million tons of lead concentrates, and within just Kansas, 2.9 million tons of zinc and 650,000 tons of lead. So this was a huge economic regime that existed in Kansas during this time period. But this is what was left behind. And so the next speakers are going to talk a lot more about how they're trying to salvage these areas. So lead and zinc mining left behind a number of physical hazards and environmental problems. We've had open mine shafts, collapsed mine shafts, subsidence areas that have claimed lives, caused property damage, and created avenues for water to enter and leave the mines. Subsidence was often a result of the final phase of mining, which is called robbing the pillars. And so people would come in and actually take out the few pillars that had been left behind to try and get what they could. In the early 1980s, the U.S. Bureau of Mines, in cooperation with state geosurveys, conducted detailed studies of the physical hazards associated with these old mining areas, identified more than 1,500 open shafts and nearly 500 subsidence collapse features in the tri-states. And again, this was back in the 80s, those numbers have updated since then. Just around Galena, at that time, a total of 599 mine hazards were found in and around Galena, Kansas. And this area was often known as Hell's Half Acre. So that's the picture that you're looking at there. But in 1994 and 1995, the EPA and local citizens filled in all the mine collapses and shafts in that town. And so that's that reclamation afterwards. And then I also wanted to point out that there are these huge chat piles. Anyone seen these yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, well we will. So the chat piles, so these were left behind. So when they would grind up the rock to get out the lead and zinc, they would just leave behind the rock that was there. This stuff still has lead in it, so it's actually still pretty problematic. And so then you kind of giggle a little bit when you realize that just 20 years ago, the Kansas Geosurvey was taking legislators out there for field trips, and they're all running up and down the chat piles, and you're like, ooh, that's not a good thing. But these chat piles, you'll learn about, Tar Creek, and probably the sulfuric acid and stuff that's coming here. This is a sinkhole, I think, that opened up in 2022 near Joplin. And entire towns have been removed. So there's the town of Pitcher, which most people are aware of in Oklahoma. There was a whole documentary done on that. They had to get everyone out. But the same thing happened here in Treese. And it's kind of eerie. You go there, not only can you go see the marker, but you can go and I'm probably not supposed to, but I did it anyways. You can go and drive along the roads where the people used to live along the town, and just trees growing over and vegetation taking over. These are people's homes. These are people's homesteads, their lifestyles, and stuff like that they had to give up because it just wasn't safe anymore. And so the one other thing I wanted to point out to set up David over here when he's talking about his stuff too, is I wanted to say don't forget about the coal. So all those Pennsylvania deposits. We have distribution of coal deposits across Cherokee, Crawford, and Bourbon counties. 4 main coal beds identified just on this map here. This is an older map. Which actually does represent the largest amount of coal resources available in 2005. There was nearly 1.3 billion tons. So not only did we start mining it, there's still coal there that could be mined, but I'm not saying that I want to open up more mines right now to get that very clear. This coal formed from swamp muck during the Pennsylvanian subperiod. This is called the Great Coal Age. So we had the widespread freshwater swamps, covered low-lying areas, thick with ferns, as tall as trees and other primitive plants. These all got eventually covered by mud and sand. The weight of the overlaying layers compressed the plant debris, and so then over time it turns into peat. And if you keep compressing that, peat turns into lignite, turns into bituminous coal, and then you could get anthracite. I don't think we have any anthracite. Yeah, no, we don't have any anthracite coal here. That's the nicer coal. But one thing I'll point out too is that for the talk I'm going to give in the next session too, this coal, so all these on the right hand side here is a little strat section. All the black layers there are the coal seams, right? So they're kind of thin coal seams that come through, but they're all interbedded within these shales. And so the shales are actually also important when we think about like the future of what we could be looking for, because the shales may contain minerals and enrichment and stuff like that that industries may want. But if you're going to get to the shales, you have to deal with the coal at the same time. Coal mining, estimated to have begun in Kansas as early as 1847 when Fort Leavenworth was established, so up in northeast Kansas. By the late 1850s, Missourians were mining coal for use by blacksmiths near what is now Weir in southeast Kansas. Just before and after the Civil War, coal production became central to the expansion of railroads because it burned hotter and was less bulky than wood. And so to meet the demands of the railroads, strip mines were opened during the 1870s in Bourbon, Cherokee, and Crawford counties. By 1931, the number of strip mines exceeded the number of deep coal mines in production, and that's a gap that continued to increase until the 1960s when the last deep coal mine closed. I believe you saw Big Brutus yesterday, if you went out there. Oh, that is so cool, right? I've gone there so many times and I can just keep going back. But it is hilarious that they brought it here and then they couldn't move it. But I love that the town took advantage of that and actually turned it into a museum. That's a great way to reclaim that. But so this is what was left behind. In 1969, the Kansas legislature passed regulations requiring coal companies to reclaim mine land and make it productive again, and more stringent regulations have followed. But on land strip mined after 1969, we would try to smooth the ditches, bury mine waste that polluted water, replace topsoil, plant grass or crops. But thousands of acres that were strip mined before those regulations are now responsible. Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks and KDHE are responsible for trying to reclaim those areas and bring those back. The last active coal mine in Kansas closed in 2016. And so I'm going to leave that there so that hopefully that sets you up all well to just jump right into your talks. All right.
Geologist perspective.
Oh, I
Yeah, so I was going to say, I'm going to set up this clicker, put this USB port in. I learned that a while back, USB port. All right, so that's set up, and just for all the rest of the talkers, so that you know the speakers, this is up here, left, right, back and front, and then this little button here. Whoa.
Well, you don't have PowerPoint up.
There we go. Laser. All right, so for those of you coming up, that'll be available. And also remember that you want to bring up your flash point for all of those in subsequent sessions. You plug them in, you can access it that way. Our next speaker is Mike Worsley from the Kansas Department of Health and Environmental Surface Mining Unit Abandoned Mine Lands Program. Please welcome Mike Worsley.
Hello everyone. Let me get this in here. There it is. I didn't bring my glasses.
You need some glasses?
No.
Longer arms.
Yeah, I'll do. Yeah.
This is my kind of technology.
I think. There we go. So, my name is Mike Worsley. I'm with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment Surface Mining Unit. Most of KDHE is up in Topeka, but we have an office down here in Frontenac, right on the edge of Pittsburg, just on the north end. We have 8 folks that are responsible for all things coal related in Kansas when it comes to active and abandoned mine land reclamation. So Most of the coal, as she explained, most of it was mined through the southeast Kansas area. Previously, before 1977, they were able to mine and leave the ground however they left it. And like she said, it created a lot of acid mine drainage, created hazards along the road. They would mine all the way up to the roads and sometimes into the roads, divert creeks, whatever they needed to do. And they started realizing this is causing a problem. The SMACRA, Surface Mining Control Reclamation Act, came in place in 1977, which changed the rules, and they said now you have to reclaim all that stuff as you're pulling it out. So, and I'll show some examples of that. Kansas actually had a law that was enacted in 1969 before this, and we were trying to make an effort to at least try and reclaim 100 feet back from the road so that we weren't creating hazards. But this was the big one. It started a trust fund that helped miners that had black loan, and then that also turned into funds that could be used for the reclamation. And that fund is from fees on coal. When it comes out of the ground, originally it started 2 or 3 cents a ton. Now I think it's up to about 30 cents a ton. It goes into the trust fund, and it's there to reclaim stuff that is prior to 1977. It also created, Title V is the regulatory program. Any new mines that come in to the state, we are responsible for regulating that coal mine. States have primacy over the feds. We get all of our oversight and money from the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation, and Enforcement, OSMRE. But in SMACRA, Title V says we need to regulate those programs those mines if they come into Kansas with their oversight, so we're responsible for that. And then we're also responsible for Title IV, which is the main part of what we do now, and that's AML, abandoned mine land, and reclaiming all of that. So this is the Abernathy map. It's a famous map put out by KGS in 1944. I don't know how well you can see it, but that's basically the corner of southeast Kansas here. Pittsburg is that little black square in the middle. It looks like it is empty, but there's a separate map for Pittsburg that shows it's inundated as well. But all of those red areas are underground mines that were recorded underneath this area. Now, the coal around here, the reason it was so popular is the Pittsburg Weir coal seam actually outcropped right through Pittsburg. So this outer black line that you'll see on the east side of this thing is the outcrop, and that's where the coal made it to the surface. So it was actually on a down dip towards the west, so that coal gets deeper and deeper as you go west, which is why it kind of tapered out. Our coal seam, the Pittsburg Weir that was primarily mined around here, was only about 2 to 3 feet thick, and it was high in sulfur. So as you move west, there was a point of diminishing returns, and it just wasn't worth digging down to it for what you were going to get out of it. And especially now with the high sulfur coal, it's not used for much. At this point, only about 15% of our energy in the United States comes from, 15 to 17%, comes from coal. The rest is from other cleaner sources. And what can be used is not the high sulfur stuff that we have. Ours is primarily used for cement production now, but they can all, depending on the price of natural gas, they can also use natural gas for the same purpose. So there's not a high demand. Most of that's coming out of parts of Missouri now to supply Monarch and some of the local cement production. So that thin layer of coal that was also very shallow is problematic around here. And out of all the surrounding states, we have the most problem with VOs, or vertical openings. because we don't have, in most of our area, there's not a restrictive layer of rock in between the coal seam and the surface, which is the overburden. There's nothing in there to hold up the surface. So in most cases, they got down to about 40, 50 feet, and then the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. So most of our underground coal mines around here were in that 25 to 50 foot, maybe 60, 70 in a few cases range. And when those mines flood, there's an example of the gentleman on the left, that's about the thickness of our coal seam. And she mentioned robbing pillars. There's a pillar right there, and on their way out, they thought, well, let's get a little more coal, and they'd rob those pillars on the way out. And as those mines fill up with water, creates that acid water she was talking about, shrink swell of our soils around here, high clay. It created collapses or subsidence features. I call them subsidence features, who knows what it is. But you get what you have here on the right side, which are VOs, vertical openings. In residential areas like this, those are an emergency. We get out there within a reasonable time frame, usually within an hour, to try and we at least cordon it off and call in locates, and we backfill these things. In residential areas, we have a high number of these compared to everyone else because of the nature of the coal in this area. So one of the things we do is this vertical opening program. We do some holes down in the lead and zinc area. We were able to use a little bit of our coal money to help with vertical openings in the lead and zinc area. So unlike our coal area, the lead and zinc mines, they can be 60, 80 foot deep and the size of football fields. We had stories of folks that, I don't know, in the 60s, they could put a canoe in trees and almost get to Webb City in Missouri underground. It's just that extensive. So those are a much higher hazard, but we take care of things like that. Once the machinery got better, 30s primarily, 30s, 40s, they were able to start tackling it from above ground. This is a typical surface mine. You'll see the left side is very steep. That's called the high wall side. You can imagine if that's about half filled up with water, and if there was a road, along here, that could be very dangerous for somebody that was driving along there. And so those are the hazards that we're trying to tackle. That 1977 rule made it so they had to reclaim it as close to what it was when they started. And so you'll see here, as they're pulling all the coal out, they're stockpiling all of that material. And then over here on the right side, you can see where they're putting topsoil back in. There's clay layers. And then as they go ahead and move to the left side there, I wish I could do north, south, east, and west, but who knows which way this picture was taken. As they move to the left there, they'll continue to reclaim that. But prior to 1977, or 69 in Kansas's case, there was none of that. And so we actually still have $850 million worth of abandoned mine land to reclaim in the state. This kind of goes over some of our funding, but you can see even at the current levels, it'll take us, I don't know, a couple hundred years of diligent work to get it all done. Because mine sites are so different, we can't just say, well, there's 68 mine sites, because some mine sites are a shaft, some mine sites, excuse me, are a square mile, or in Wildlife and Parks case, 14,000 acres of abandoned mine land. And so we break those down into cost. How much does it cost to reclaim a linear foot of high wall or pit? or an acre of spoil area. So, and that equates to about $850 million. Kansas Geological Survey is actually going to help us complete our inventory over the next 3 years. We've got a cooperative agreement with them that we're excited about. So just to go over a few just quick things. I'm not going to bore you with numbers, but just to let you know what we have. Active mining Title V, we have to have a Title V program or active mining program in order to have AML. Title V, like she mentioned, 2016, last coal came out. We have to keep the doors open in case somebody wants to come in and open an active mining permit again. Reclaiming is probably what it will end up being, and going after those rare earth minerals if they do. So right now we don't have a whole lot. We have one bond forfeiture site, so when a company maybe goes bankrupt or gives it up, we have their bond, and then we're responsible then for the reclamation of that site as opposed to the mining company. So we have one bond forfeiture site remaining. We've been working on it since 2011, a little bit at a time, and it'll be closed out this year. So there's not a whole lot for us to do besides the administrative part of it. And if somebody was to walk in and need a new mining permit, it would change the whole ball of wax. But right now, we only request $19,503 in federal funds this year. The state's required to match that. And so we have $39,000 to work on our active mining this year, which there's very little of. So a lot of that money may go back into the federal coffers if we don't use it. Abandoned mine land is where we live for right now. That fee-based grant that I mentioned earlier, that comes out of that trust fund. Kansas is a minimum program state. Out of all the historic coal states, I think there were 26 or 7. Obviously Pennsylvania yearly gets hundreds of millions of dollars. We get 2.8 million. And then when the bill, bipartisan infrastructure legislation, or IIJA, whatever you want to call it, when President Biden enacted that in 2021, a lot of agencies got some of that money. For coal reclamation, we get it for 15 years to a tune of 4.8 million annually. Sounds like a lot. Pennsylvania is getting like 246 million annually, I think. So it's really peanuts but Pennsylvania has its own problems. So, but we'll get that for the next till 2036. So right now we're trying to get the big fish. We don't. While we have this big money, we want to get the biggest problems that we may not be able to afford in years to come. So that's about all I have. I have a couple of examples of what we do. It's similar to her slides that we had earlier. This is actually a Kansas Wildlife and Parks area, Area 2. You'll see the high walls along both sides of those roads, and you'll also see guardrail. Before we had a lot of money, this was the fix, is guardrail along here to try and mitigate hazards. But if that road gets icy and somebody goes off and in the water, it has happened. So we go in and we take care of those, move them back from the road. And this is the finished product. This is part of our partnership with Wildlife and Parks. We put in a parking area so that folks can fish, a boat ramp, and we move all that back off the road. It's still accessible for folks to use and to recreate, but it's much safer, and we get to remove that guardrail. This was also, this is my second to last slide. This was our North Grasshopper corner. We named them really funny things. There used to be a building on this corner that had a big grasshopper painted on this side of it. So here's what you get. This was a half-mile long pit that, once again, you'll see the guardrail along the side here, and the shoulder of the road was actually starting to slough off into the pit. And This pit itself took 800,000 cubic yards of material to fill it. So we estimated this at $6 to $7 million to reclaim. The winning bidder we got it done for 3.2. So we try and do the best we can, but the finished product here is this. And this is freshly after reclamation, just starting to get some grass on it. The landowner that had this pit has cattle. He wasn't interested in all the water in the world. He wanted some farm ponds and he wanted grass. So what we did is we went to the adjacent property, worked out a deal with that property owner to, and I don't know who wouldn't take this deal, to build a 37-acre lake. But we needed that much material to move here along the side and reclaim all that. But then this landowner here has some farm ponds that he can cross fence. He can use his portion for his uses, and the other person gets a great duck lake. So, but that's part of what we do. We try and work with landowners. There's a lot of stuff out there that needs to be done, but sometimes they've been fishing in that pit with Grandpa for 35 years, and they don't want us to touch it. So some of those hazards go unremediated, but we do our best to work with landowners, try and have a positive outcome on both sides. So that's all I've got. If anybody has a quick question, so I do have a couple of fun facts. Brutus, they just recently, so when P&M, when Brutus, and you probably got this yesterday, but when Brutus ended, it was too expensive to move it anywhere, so they just said, here's the museum, and they parked it where it was. Similarly, P&M, Pittsburg and Midway Coal Company that built Brutus, had a similar one, smaller obviously, just barely smaller, in West Virginia, and it was too expensive to even pull out of the pit that it was digging when it was done, so it was buried. And now they're reclaiming that site, and the state of West Virginia is going to pay to pull that thing out of the ground, scrape off all the rust, and reclaim it. So we were fortunate that we did Brutus the way we did ahead of time, because they found out that was kind of a neat thing, and they shouldn't have buried it. Another fun fact, I don't know if anybody talked about this yesterday, I guess you haven't gone down to the Lead and Zinc area yet, but Mickey Mantle is from down around this area, and when on winters when he wasn't playing baseball, he would come back to the Baxter Springs area and he would work in the mines. He worked for Eagle Pitcher right around Baxter, and so that's kind of a neat connection there. But anyway, that's all I've got. You guys got any questions? Yeah.
No questions now. If you want to ask him questions, ask later. In other sessions, we'll have questions at the end. Not right now, class.
I'm sorry.
But I will tell you this, if you find a buried shovel in Finland and there's a Viking in it, you know they're in Valhalla. All right. Sorry about that, class. We're kind of running a little late. Our next speaker today is David Jenkins with the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks Habitat Restoration. Let's please give David a warm welcome.
Struggling here. Oh, okay. Alright, I'm going to go for it here. My name is David Jenkins. I'm a public land manager, wildlife manager for the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. And I've been managing the mine land area for going on 24 years. And actually descendants of miners myself. I'm from the area. Have people in the coal mines in the past. There was actually a Jenkins coal mine back in the day, and so all my people worked in the coal mines. And I've been blessed to manage this area for Like I said, going on 24 years, and it's been a great career. So, let's see here. Okay, so Mineland Wildlife Area. So our goal is to enhance habitat, and we cater to the hunters, anglers, trappers, wildlife enthusiasts. You know, although there was quite the environmental devastation to the area resulted from the coal mining over the years with reclamation efforts and just time, the landscape has healed itself. And we manage the area using funds that are generated from hunting, fishing, and other licensed sales. And so that's kind of where the money comes from, is from our hunters and anglers. And we also have a lot of non-consumptive users, bird watchers, those types. So Mineland's a large area. It covers the state, owns about 14,500 acres, and it's broke up into 47 separate units. 70% of the ground that Kansas Wildlife and Parks owns has been surface mined for gold. You guys saw some of the other slides with the strip mine lakes. We have over 400 strip mine lakes on the area, about 1,800 acres of surface water. First acquisition was 1926, and then the largest acquisition was in 1981 from Peanut Coal, which amounted to a little over 8,000 acres. Some of the infrastructure we maintain, you can see there 45 dams. We have 80 boat ramps on the area, 120 parking lots, interior road, 20 miles of interior roadways. The boundaries are pretty vast. We have 2 offices and 2 cabins, numerous outbuildings for our stuff. Actually, there's 2 of us full-time on the area, and we've been trying to hire somebody the past year. We haven't been successful in doing that, but it's a large area, a lot of work to be done. You can see we receive about 300,000 visitors per year, and then the terrestrial habitat, 4,100 acres of grassland, 1,420 of savanna, 2,600 acres of mature woodland, 3,950 acres of early successional woodland, and then there's some cropland on the area as well. It's a very diverse area, and as wildlife managers, we try to create diversity, which is better for our wildlife populations. And then aquatic habitat, 12 miles of streams, and then the strip mine lakes, talk about. Some of the habitat management tools we use, one of the best tools we use is prescribed fires. So we try to maintain our grasslands by burning and throughout the year, mostly in the spring, but we do some growing season burns as well to try to reduce the woody invasion, and it adds diversity to the habitat. So fire on the landscape is a good tool for wildlife managers. Native grass and wildflowers. We've done a lot of work with Mike and his crew at Surface Mine Section. I won't be going over that, but some of what we get with those projects is to take out some woodland that's not quality woodland, and then convert it to native grass. So it's better habitat for ground nesting birds and other wildlife. We do some grazing on mine lands. We have about 700 acres of grazing, and that's something that we've implemented within the last probably 7-8 years. And it does a couple of things. It helps with the habitat, but it also generates a little revenue for us. And we use that revenue to hire some help and do other stuff on the area, buy equipment and such. There's about 650 acres of agriculture on the area, and that kind of gives some of the wildlife a food source, but to also generate some revenue for us to use for a variety of management items that we need to do on the area. This is a pic of a youth hunt. Some of our local hunters. You saw the sunflowers that were planted in the previous slide, and that's something that we do every year for our hunters. And dove season kind of kicks off the hunting season September 1, so it's kind of turned into a tradition for us. And that's throughout the state. Our hunters expect us to, raise good food plots and attract the wildlife so they can take part in their activity, their sport. This is another youth hunt that we did with adjacent landowners. Got some kids out and harvested some antlerless deer. Probably many of you have hit deer on the roadway, so we were able to get some of these kids out for their first hunt. And one problem that's not really related to mining, but we're starting to lose our hunting and angler numbers. So we try to recruitment and retention for young hunters and anglers in us. This is a pic of a family fishing on the area. Fishing is excellent on mine land, largemouth bass, white and black crappie, channel cat, red ear sunfish, bluegill, just excellent fishing throughout the area. And we have a lot of fishing opportunities on the area. So this is a pic of what a lot of people know as the Whitmore area, and this was a result of some of the dollars that Mike and his gang spent on the area. And you can see just that was a high wall along the road. We addressed a safety issue, but also for us, it created fishing access. And you can see the county road up there to the left. Right here. And then we got a little parking area out of the deal. And they put in these rock tows to support the earth here so it doesn't slough off into the strip line lake. And that also creates fish habitat for us. So we get a lot of good out of these projects. We've had to defend these projects publicly. We had one in 2015 that kind of got everybody riled up. But over the years, we've been able to show that the improvements and the gains are better than the loss. And Mike and his bunch are always committed to not reduce surface acres of water and those types of things. So we've been able to sell that to the people, and I think we've overcome that hurdle, and people see the benefits of these projects. This was across the road. This was another reclamation project. You can see the fishing access. You can see the high wall here. Folks without a boat can't get in there and fish. So to have this nice grade here, people can walk down from the county road, or they can use the parking area. We put in a new boat ramp here, and then these tree plantings were to mitigate for some woodland loss because of the gray bat. So they did a little mitigation project for that as well. So good project. Fisheries management, here's some of our guys running some nets. We do some sampling to make sure that our fishing regulations are where they need to be as far as limits and taking fish. And then this is a fish feeder, and this is actually a strip mine lake that's called the Trout Lake, and it's about 72 foot deep, and it's spring fed, so we're able to stock trout in this lake. But it's a pretty good draw for the area as well. Kayak fishing is gotten very popular, and we see a lot of kayaks out on the area. It's perfect, small bodies of water for that. So that's been a huge draw lately. And then we do allow primitive camping on the area, and we don't really have any designated campsites, but as long as folks just use common sense, we mow out some areas next to these strip mine lakes, and folks can utilize those campsites. And we try to work with the public as much as we can. It's just a pick of Boy Scouts, and they redid a sign for us. And you know, when we have a good relationship with the public, they pay our wages, and they expect us to do the work and create a nice area for them. So anytime we can work with the public, that's a good thing for us. I mentioned the boat ramps, 80 boat ramps throughout the area, and this is just an example of one of those. And then law enforcement, we're law enforcement certified, and we work with our game wardens to curb poaching activities. And unfortunately, the pick on the right, we have a lot of trash dumping on the area. I don't know how to overcome it. I've been there for, like I said, going on 24 years, and just the lack of respect. The people don't realize what type of resource we have, and we still get this kind of stuff on the area pretty constant. We have closed off areas starting September 1, and we close roads off, and we keep them closed until March 1 because of this reason, but also to allow our hunters to go in some of these areas and not get interfered with by traffic and stuff. But the main reason is the litter bugs. It's unfortunate. We got 2 office facilities. We have one out west Pittsburg, and we have another office southwest of West Middle. And we've upgraded offices over the years, and we have a nice professional working environment. If you all get out on the area and need a map or something, come by and we'll take care of it. We're typically there, somebody's there 8 to 5 during the week. Mineland cabins, we have 2 cabins for rent. We've had cabins since about 2007. So if y'all ever want to get out on the area, those are available. You can get online and rent, or you can call one of our offices and do that. Mineland bison. We got a small bison herd. They're located north of Frontenac, and I think we have 5 animals right now. But this is, and some of you probably know this, every manager at Mineland has tried to get rid of bison over the years, and finally, this past time, we created a law that mandates the state to maintain a herd north of Frontenac, and I get credit for doing that. Anyway, we got a big old, there's a nice looking bull in there, and a couple of the calves or cows are about 30 years old. They're neat animals. Just real quick, I want to point out the amount of dollars spent by KDH&E, and it just, you can kind of see the years over here where we've spent the money, the projects. These are the units on mine land that were affected. The native grass was restored right in here. I think 533 acres, and I think this is an old graph here, but that number's bigger than that. But it says 10 million right there. It's more like 17 million spent on the area. So really good projects. We've just been able to improve infrastructure, safety, get new boat ramps, new roadways. It's been a really good thing for Kansas Wildlife and Parks and our users. And that's all I got.
All right, our last speaker in this session is Sarah Runyon, and Sarah comes up here. She is the Executive Director of Explore Crawford County, and give her a warm welcome as she comes up. Their organization helped to organize a lot of this. They gave us $1,350 and have been great in many ways. And of course, Sarah's here because Chris Wilson couldn't be here. We always wanted Sarah, of course. And we really appreciate her stepping in for Chris. Please welcome Sarah Runyon again.
So yes, I am a poor replacement for Chris. He knows a lot more about this area than I do, and is much more qualified, but here I am, and I'm so excited to be here. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming to Southeast Kansas. Thank you for coming to Crawford County and for touring our area and staying in our hotels, and for hanging out with us and learning a little bit more about our wonderful community and how mining has shaped so much of our culture and so much of our history and so much of who we are. A little fun fact, I'm not from Pittsburgh, didn't grow up here. I'm from Kansas, though. I'm from a little town called Overbrook. There's about 800 people there. That's what they say the population is, although I think they're pushing it. They're probably inflating their numbers. But that's where I'm from. I came down here to go to Pittsburg State University because of so I became a guerrilla, and I started in 2007, and I never left, stuck around because it's such a great community. But before I transferred to Pittsburg State, I was going to Allen Community College, and I had a history instructor named Steve Dotson, who was a master storyteller. He could create these amazing stories from our history, and that just, made you feel like you were there. I told him I was transferring to Pittsburg State. He said, "Oh, let me tell you about Pittsburgh." And I learned about mining, and I I learned about some of the bootlegging, and I heard about Josiah and some of the rabble rousers down here, and I thought to myself, ooh, I knew there were gorillas, but I didn't know that there was such a cool history. So I thought to myself, man, this community must have a pretty incredible story, and I was right. I'm going to do a little bit of a favor. I kind of wagered that the folks before me were going to talk a long time. We were going to run late, so I have a very short talk. You're welcome.
No questions, Bob.
No questions, please. In addition to being the new director for Explore Crawford County, I've also been fortunate to serve for the past couple years as the president of Pittsburg 150, a community group whose sole purpose is to celebrate Pittsburgh's 150th. So we're celebrating our sesquicentennial this year at the same time that the United States is celebrating their semi-quincentennial. And yes, it did take me 3 years to learn how to say those words. I am not a scientist. I'm definitely not as smart as Blair. And I'm not a historian, but I am definitely a history enthusiast. So very excited to meet you all, very excited to learn. A lot of the things that Chris told me to talk about today, and he did tell me all the things that I was supposed to talk about today. I'm actually very unqualified to talk about, and there are some people in this room that are way more qualified. Most of them are sitting right here, and you're going to hear from them. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I feel like is the most remarkable things about the Pittsburgh community. Pittsburgh, like most of our Southeast Kansas communities, we started as prairie land, right? And beneath that prairie was coal, which is why we're all here. And it changed everything. It changed our land, it changed our culture, it changed the landscape, and it changed the people. Pittsburgh's founder, Franklin Plater, lured workers to the coal fields by placing advertisements in the Mediterranean and European villages depicting our city as paradise on earth. They're kind of right. It's cool. It's a pretty cool place. By 1914, Crawford County alone had 63 deep shaft mines. The Weir-Pittsburgh coal field, spanning Crawford and Cherokee counties, generated about 1/3 of the nation's bituminous coal. Am I saying that right? These folks are going to tell me. Okay, there, see? That's why they're the experts. Over 50 different nationalities settled in Pittsburgh to work in the coal mines. It's said that in the early days you could walk down Broadway Street and hear over 50 different languages spoken. Imagine what that would have been like. Political turmoil in their home countries shaped who they were, and when they faced obstacles here, those hardy folks were not afraid to put up a fight. When faced with dangerous working conditions in the mines, labor unions became exceptionally prevalent, and Pittsburgh became a fierce battleground. When miners became unemployed, there was no time off. There was no benefits for those folks if they were injured or they were stuck at home. They went on strike and they turned to bootlegging to keep food on the table. Yeah, we were moonshiners in the state of Kansas with the longest prohibition in the nation. So we were rebels, and seeing that constant turmoil happening down here in the southeastern part of the state, and the connection between the folks here and the Balkans region of Europe, where most of our immigrants came. One elected official in the state capital called our region the Kansas Balkans, right? So he meant it to be derogatory, he meant it to vilify our area, and it worked a little bit, but what was meant to dismiss us and alienate us and put us down, that term, Little Balkans, became a badge of pride for our community. And it gave people with different backgrounds, but similar values, a shared sense of identity. And it became kind of our rallying point. Pittsburgh at its beginning was this cultural melting pot, but more than that, it was a place where people from all over the globe came with the promise of a new life and the American dream, and we built it. This community has overcome a lot of obstacles. At one point, our county was named the poorest county in the state, or one of the poorest counties in the state, and we've turned that around. Just in the last decade, Pittsburgh has seen over $800 million in economic development. So that sort of culture of overcoming adversity and what we were shaped, by hardship, we're defined by this resilience and this constant determination. And I think that comes from our mining heritage. It comes from that heritage of hard work and those values that shaped us and that continue to this day. And I think if our founders could see 150 years into the future, I think if they could picture where we are today, they would be very proud. So I want to thank you for letting me speak for just a little while. Hopefully I didn't go too long, but I appreciate everyone coming to Crawford County and for coming to this conference, and I hope that you guys enjoy the conference, and I'll be looking forward to meeting all of you as we go. So thank you so much.
All right, y'all, we're a little bit behind, so what we're going to do is, what time is it? Thoughts, you know what time it is?
9:26.
9:26, so we're going to be here at 9:35 to start the next session. So whoever's in the next session, Blair, Jerry, and who else?
Linda.
Oh, of course, how could I forget? Linda Cano. And so let's say 9:35, go get your coffee, the restrooms are down here. And we'll eventually get it back on schedule. And the session's coming up. I'm going to admonish the chairs to make sure you keep your speakers on time so that nobody loses time. And if it begins to go over time, then I will probably stand over here and start giving you the beady eye. So be aware that will be what will happen. So we'll start at 9:35 with the same amount of time, and we'll be good. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.